There are hundreds of native customary rights land disputes waiting to be heard by the courts, as more and more of Sarawak's native communities challenge the state government on land ownership issues. So what rights do Sarawak's native people actually have to the land they live on? Let's start by understanding how Sarawak's native people understand the land where they live. Native communities define their lands in three ways. Pemakai Menua is the entire territorial domain, including things like rivers, the Longhouse site, and cemeteries. Pulau Galau is communal primary forest reserves, and Temuda refers to cleared and cultivated land. While only the Penan are a truly nomadic ethnic group, other groups are traditionally semi-nomadic, periodically moving to new land, meaning their Pemakai Menua would move with them. These concepts have largely been respected throughout the centuries, even when foreign rulers like the Brooke family took charge in Sarawak. But in 1946, when the Brooke family handed Sarawak over to the British government, a whole new system to classify land ownership was created. This system was laid out in the 1958 Land Code. Until today, the Land Code is the land law of Sarawak. So what does this Land Code say about native land rights? Firstly, it recognizes that native people have what's called native customary rights to land and are able to claim titles to it. Section 5 of the Land Code says the methods by which native customary rights may be acquired is for native communities to cut down virgin jungle and occupy it, or to cultivate it, or to use it as a burial ground or shrine, etc. Basically, as long as native communities can prove that they have lived on the land and practice their lifestyle on that land, they can claim it is their native customary land. The caveat being that those claims need to predate 1958. So if a community's occupancy of the land only started after 1958, no can do. Sounds simple, but the system doesn't always work.
It is very difficult because their history is oral, nothing is documented, and by the time native claimants come to claim their NCR rights in court, most of the time, the evidence of their shrines, graveyards, their farms have most likely already been encroached upon by timber companies or the oil palm companies.
The other point of contention, as you might notice, is the methods of claiming land rights laid out in the Land Code don't exactly match the native understanding of their land use.
The occupation is not a problem. If I've lived there is a long house before 1958, quite easy to prove the claim. But I think indigenous land rights is beyond just the place where they stay. So it's the place where they cultivate, the place where they forage, hunt.
Many court cases have been fought trying to define ancestral land boundaries, including the high-profile TR Sanda versus the Director of Forest and the State. The Iban communities affected attempted to claim virgin forest land that they foraged and hunted in for generations under the custom of Pemakai Menua. But the courts ruled that Pemakai Menua is not a custom recognized in Sarawak's Land Code or other land legislation, and therefore it has no force of law. Unable to prove their claims on their native customary land, the land is then considered unoccupied and automatically belongs to the state. But it's not just difficult to prove customary land claims, it can be difficult to hang on to them. The Land Code lays out how their NCR can be cancelled simply by direction of the minister. It's a situation that has led to countless land disputes over the years, many arising after the government has leased the land to companies for development.
There are similar patterns to these disputes. It's always either some timber company involved, some oil palm company involved, or some quarry license involved. There's always an encroachment by a third party for some development purposes. The other thing that's always very prominent is that most native claimants don't know that a particular license or a particular provisional lease has been issued by the government over the piece of land until it is very late. The other consistent thing that we see are that most of the cases deal with communities that are actually in very rural areas where there's probably a lot of lack of information.
Available mapping data from Global Forest Watch shows that the loss of forest cover in Sarawak has increased drastically, caused by logging, plantations, and mega projects like dams. Often, native communities lose their claims to their land to these development projects and end up being resettled elsewhere. For example, when the Bakun Dam was built, some 10,000 people were displaced.
When they were relocated to Sungai Asap, then they were all put together in a settlement. I mean, there was still land, but the size shrunk very small, and that means they could not have enough from their cultivation or maybe their rice. They could not have enough to fish because the rivers became small and many people were sharing in that small river. So the resources for their livelihood decreased, which means they had to rely on other incomes. So that changed their lifestyle and also brought in elements of poverty that were not seen before.
This is what makes this issue bigger than a native rights issue. This is an environmental and development issue that affects us all. Native tribes around the world have shown over and over again to be the best guardians of their traditional territories. Many tribal belief systems and customs from Africa to the Amazon and Asia are tied closely to preservation of the environment. National Geographic highlights that the fact that the Amazon ecosystems are as rich as they are today is proof of how successful these cultures have been in living in balance with their environment. And research on the Semak Beri tribe in Terengganu shows that the tribe safeguards the sustainability of the forest so that its benefits will not only be enjoyed by the current generation, but also for generations to come. In contrast, rapid deforestation has been shown to increase local and global climate change by affecting wind and water vapor flows as well as removing water catchment areas, which threatens our drinking water, fisheries, and aquatic habitats. However, the state does not seem to agree with these views. According to a 2011 study of indigenous land rights in Malaysia, the government asserts that the development of indigenous lands is in the national interest and that it alleviates poverty in depressed marginal areas. Pakatan Harapan's election manifesto had criticised the previous government, saying they had failed to ensure the protection and legal rights of customary land in Sarawak and Sabah, and that the natives' customary land was sold or leased at very low prices to logging companies and developers of oil palm estates. Several promises were made to address this, but the results remain to be seen. One positive recent development is a key amendment to the Sarawak Land Code that introduces the concept of native territorial domain. This amendment was sort of in response to the TR Sendah case we mentioned earlier, where the federal court ruled that the custom of Pemakai Menua had no force of law. So this amendment would basically define Pemakai Menua land as native territorial domain and allow land claims under this of up to 1,000 hectares. Such land titles would be granted in perpetuity, free of premiums, rents, or other charges. The amendment bill was passed in 2018 and came into effect in August 2019. Deputy Chief Minister Dato' Ahmad Douglas Ugah Embas, who is Minister of Modernisation of Agriculture, Native Land and Regional Development, said the amendments would definitely resolve the controversies around the issue of native territorial domain. But it hasn't exactly. Although the amendments seem positive, some native communities actually campaigned to stop the bill going through. Baru Bian, Sarawak PKR chairman said, "We have won cases where the Pemakai Menua and Pulau Galau extends beyond 10,000 hectares. Limiting the size in this manner is unjust, unfair and morally wrong." During a street protest, Scrip Secretary General Michael Jock added, "We natives cannot accept the bill. It will require every native settlement to apply to the State Land and Survey Director in order for us to get government recognition of our communal territorial land." This disagreement and the fight over who owns that land in Sarawak seems set to go on. But it really comes down to this. What values should govern the use of our land? Election promises seem to say environmental values, indigenous values would take precedence. But as of now, we are still waiting for those promises to be fulfilled. The Land Code Amendment shows a willingness to change this attitude, but perhaps it still hasn't gone quite far enough to build trust with native communities.
If the state needs land for whatever purposes, then make them partners to be involved. Because indigenous people are not close to also wanting to develop economically, but they want to be part of that center to have a decision on their own land. They are not claiming the whole state, they're claiming what belongs to them.